The city lights flickered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our penthouse, casting a cold glow over the sleek, modern furniture. I stood in the doorway, keys still in hand, taking in the scene before me. Victoria, my wife of 5 years, was perched on the edge of the leather sofa, her phone held out in front of her like a shield. Her eyes, usually so expressive and warm, were hard and distant as she spoke to the camera. "Hey everyone," she said, her voice bubbly and bright, a stark contrast to the tension in the room. "So, I have some big news to share with you all today. It's been a crazy ride, and I want you to hear it from me first." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. What was she doing? Our life together had become a series of performances, each one more elaborate than the last. But this was different. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, a gnawing sense of dread that something was very, very wrong. Victoria looked up at me, her eyes meeting mine for a brief moment before flicking back to the screen. "Ethan's home," she said, a fake smile plastered on her face. "Perfect timing. Why don't you come sit down, babe? We have something to talk about." I hesitated, my feet rooted to the spot. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn around, to walk out the door and never look back. But I couldn't. I had to know what she was planning, what twisted game she was playing now. I walked over to the sofa and sat down beside her, my body stiff and unyielding. Victoria turned to face me, her phone still recording, and took a deep breath. "Ethan, I think it's time we both admit that this isn't working anymore," she said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "We've grown apart, and I need more than what you can give me." I stared at her, my mind racing. Was she seriously doing this? Ending our marriage on a live stream for her millions of followers to see? I felt a surge of anger, hot and fierce. But I pushed it down, determined not to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. "Victoria, what are you talking about?" I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "We can talk about this in private. You don't need to do this here." She waved a hand dismissively, her eyes never leaving the camera. "No, Ethan, I think it's best if we're honest with everyone. Our followers deserve to know the truth. And the truth is, I found someone else. Someone who understands me, who supports my dreams and my career." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. She'd found someone else. When? How? My mind flashed back to the countless nights she'd spent out with friends, the endless hours she'd devoted to her social media presence, the way she'd always brushed off my concerns as jealousy or insecurity. I should have seen it coming. I should have known. Victoria reached down and picked up a manila envelope from the coffee table, holding it up to the camera. "These are divorce papers, Ethan," she said, her voice cold and detached. "I think it's best if we both move on with our lives. I want a clean break, no drama, no mess. I think we both deserve that, don't you?" I stared at the envelope, my vision swimming. This couldn't be happening. Not like this. Not with the whole world watching. I felt a wave of humiliation wash over me, followed by a white-hot anger. How dare she do this to me? How dare she treat our marriage, our life together, like some cheap reality show? I stood up, my body shaking with rage. "Turn off the camera, Victoria," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Turn it off now." She looked up at me, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. "Why, Ethan? Afraid of a little publicity? You know how much my followers love a good drama. And this is going to be epic." I lunged for the phone, but she was too quick. She jumped up from the sofa, holding the device out of reach. "Come on, Ethan, don't be like this," she taunted. "Give the people what they want. Give them a show." I stopped, my breath coming in ragged gasps. This was what she wanted. A spectacle. A viral moment. She didn't care about me, about our marriage, about anything but her precious follower count. The first couldn't give her that satisfaction. I wouldn't. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. "Fine," I said, my voice steady. "You want a show? Let's give them a show. But not here. Not like this." Victoria raised an eyebrow, a gleam of interest in her eyes. "What do you have in mind?" she asked, a hint of excitement in her voice. I smiled, a cold, calculating smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Meet me at the office tomorrow," I said. "We'll do this properly. No cameras, no followers, just you and me. And then we'll give them their drama." Victoria hesitated, her eyes searching mine. I could see the gears turning in her head, the calculations and the schemes. But I also saw something else. A flicker of uncertainty, a chink in her armor. "Fine," she said finally, her voice laced with suspicion. "Tomorrow. But if you try anything, Ethan, if you so much as think about screwing me over, I swear to God, I will ruin you. I will take everything you have and leave you with nothing. Do you understand me? I nodded, my smile never wavering. Oh, I understand, Victoria, I said. I understand perfectly. And I wouldn't have it any other way. As I turned and walked out of the penthouse, the city lights twinkling in the distance, I knew that this was just the beginning. The beginning of the end, perhaps. But also the beginning of something new. Something raw and real and terrifyingly uncertain. And for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. I felt like myself again. And I was ready to fight for what was mine. The next morning, I woke up in a hotel room, the events of the previous night still fresh in my mind. I had barely slept, my thoughts consumed by Victoria's betrayal and the impending confrontation. I knew I had to act fast, to take control of the situation before it spiraled out of control. I couldn't let her win, not like this. I picked up my phone and dialed Lucas, my best friend and co-founder of our tech startup. He answered on the first ring, his voice groggy but concerned. Ethan, what's going on? I saw Victoria's live stream. Are you okay? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. I need your help, Lucas. Victoria, she's planning to take everything. The company, the penthouse, all of it. I can't let her do that. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear the gears turning in Lucas's head. What do you need me to do? He asked finally, his voice steady and determined. I need you to help me gather evidence, I said. Emails, messages, financial records, anything that proves her infidelity and her manipulations. We need to build a case against her, something ironclad that she can't weasel her way out of. Lucas hesitated for a moment before responding. Ethan, are you sure about this? I mean, I know she hurt you, but do you really want to go to war with her? It's going to get ugly, and it's going to get public. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I know, Lucas. But I can't just roll over and let her take everything I've worked for. She wants a fight. I'll give her a fight. But I need you by my side. I can't do this alone. Lucas sighed, but I could hear the resolve in his voice. All right, Ethan, I'm in. Let's take her down. Over the next few hours, Lucas and I worked tirelessly, poring over years of digital correspondence and financial records. We uncovered a web of deceit and manipulation that went far beyond anything I had imagined. Victoria had been siphoning funds from our joint accounts, funneling them into her own projects and lavish expenses. She had been communicating with her new boyfriend, a fitness influencer named Derek, for months, their messages filled with plans for a future together and disparaging remarks about me. As I read through the messages, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. How had I been so blind? How had I not seen the signs, the red flags that were now so glaringly obvious? I had been so focused on building our company, on providing for our future, that I had ignored the cracks in our foundation. I had let her manipulate me, control me, and now I was paying the price. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not this time. With the evidence in hand, I made my way to the office, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew Victoria would be there, waiting for me, ready to pounce. But I was ready for her. I was ready for the fight of my life. As I stepped into the conference room, I was greeted by the sight of Victoria, dressed in a power suit, her hair perfectly coiffed, and her makeup flawless. She was flanked by her lawyer, a smug-looking man in an expensive suit, and Derek, who stood behind her like a bodyguard. I took a deep breath and walked over to the table, setting down a folder filled with the evidence Lucas and I had gathered. Victoria's eyes flicked to the folder, a hint of uncertainty in her gaze. Ethan, she said, her voice cold and calculating, I see you've brought some reading material. How quaint. I ignored her jab, my eyes locked on hers. Victoria, I think it's time we had an honest conversation. No cameras, no followers, just you and me. She raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. Oh, Ethan, always so dramatic. Fine, let's hear it. What do you have to say? I opened the folder and began to lay out the evidence, piece by piece. I showed her the financial records, the messages between her and Derek, the proof of her manipulations and deceit. With each revelation, I could see the color drain from her face, her confidence faltering. You think you have me figured out, Victoria, I said, my voice steady and calm. You think you can control me, manipulate me, take everything I've worked for. But you're wrong. I see you for who you really are, and I won't let you win, not this time. Victoria's eyes flashed with anger, her hands clenched into fists on the table. You think you can threaten me, Ethan? You think you can scare me with your little folder of evidence? I have an army of followers behind me. I have influence, power. You're nothing without me. I smiled, a cold, calculating smile that didn't reach my eyes. You're right, Victoria. You do have influence, power. But you're forgetting one thing. I have the truth. and the truth always wins in the end. With that, I stood up and walked out of the conference room, leaving Victoria and her entourage in stunned silence. I knew this was just the beginning, that the battle was far from over, but I also knew that I had the upper hand, that I had the evidence, and the resolve to see this through to the end. As I made my way back to my office, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride, of determination. I had been knocked down, betrayed, humiliated, but I had gotten back up, I had fought back, and I was ready for whatever came next. I sat down at my desk, my mind racing with the events of the day. I knew I had a long road ahead of me, that the fight with Victoria was far from over. But I also knew that I had the strength, the resilience to see it through. I had built a company from nothing, had overcome countless obstacles and setbacks, and I would overcome this too. I picked up my phone and dialed Olivia, a renowned lawyer specializing in high-stakes divorces. I had met her at a tech conference a few years back, and she had impressed me with her intelligence, her tenacity, and her no-nonsense attitude. I knew she was the right person to have by my side in this fight. "Olivia," I said when she answered the phone. "It's Ethan. I need your help. I'm in the fight of my life, and I need the best. I need you." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear the gears turning in Olivia's head. "Ethan," she said finally, her voice steady and determined. "I'm in. Let's take her down." With Olivia on my side, I knew I had a fighting chance. I knew that together, we could expose Victoria's manipulations, her deceit, and her true nature. And I knew that, no matter what happened, I would come out of this stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever before. As I hung up the phone and looked out at the city skyline, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I was ready for the fight. I was ready to take control of my life, to reclaim my identity, and to build a future that was truly my own. And I knew that, no matter what obstacles lay ahead, I had the strength and the resilience to overcome them. The city lights faded in the rearview mirror as I drove towards the mountains, seeking solace in the quiet and isolation of nature. The confrontation with Victoria had left me drained, both emotionally and physically. I needed time to reflect, to heal, and to rebuild my sense of self. The cabin I had rented, nestled deep in the woods, offered the perfect sanctuary for this journey of self-discovery. As I pulled up to the cabin, the crisp mountain air filled my lungs, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The cabin was rustic and simple, a stark contrast to the sleek modernity of the penthouse I had shared with Victoria. But it was exactly what I needed, a place to disconnect from the noise of the world and reconnect with myself. The first few days were difficult. I found myself constantly checking my phone, scrolling through social media, and refreshing my email, as if expecting some new drama to unfold. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to settle into a new rhythm. I woke up with the sun, spent my days hiking and exploring the surrounding wilderness, and my evenings reading by the fire. I rediscovered my love for coding, spending hours lost in the intricacies of algorithms and data structures. It was a return to the simplicity and joy that had first drawn me to technology, before the pressures of success and the distractions of wealth. One evening, as I sat by the fire, the flames casting a warm glow over the pages of my book, I found myself reflecting on my relationship with Victoria. I thought about the early days, when our love had been genuine and uncomplicated. We had shared dreams and aspirations, a vision for a future built on mutual support and respect. But somewhere along the way, we had lost sight of that vision. Victoria had become consumed by her desire for fame and influence, and I had become consumed by my work, neglecting the foundation of our relationship. I realized that I had played a role in the demise of our marriage. I had allowed myself to be swayed by the allure of success, to be drawn into the whirlwind of ambition and achievement. I had lost sight of what truly mattered: the connections, the moments, the shared experiences that make life worth living. As I sat there, the fire crackling softly in the background, I made a promise to myself. I would not let the pain and betrayal of the past define me. I would not allow myself to be consumed by bitterness or resentment. Instead, I would use this experience as an opportunity for growth and transformation. I would rebuild my life, piece by piece, with a newfound appreciation for authenticity, connection, and purpose. With this new resolve, I began to explore the local community, seeking out connections and experiences that aligned with my values. I discovered a vibrant community of artists, writers, and creatives who had chosen to live in the mountains, drawn by the beauty of the landscape and the simplicity of the lifestyle. I found inspiration in their stories, their passions, and their commitment to living authentically. I also began to mentor young entrepreneurs, sharing my knowledge and experience with those who were just starting out on their own journeys. I found a deep sense of fulfillment in helping others navigate the challenges and uncertainties of building a business, and in watching them grow and succeed. It was a reminder of the power of community, of the importance of supporting and uplifting one another. As the weeks turned into months, I began to feel a sense of clarity and purpose that I had never known before. I was no longer defined by my past, by the betrayals and the heartaches. I was no longer consumed by the desire for success or the fear of failure. Instead, I was driven by a deep sense of purpose, a commitment to living authentically and to making a positive impact on the world. One day, as I sat on the porch of the cabin, watching the sun set over the mountains, I received a call from Lucas. He had been holding down the fort at the company, managing the day-to-day operations and navigating the complexities of the divorce. I could hear the exhaustion in his voice, but also a sense of pride and accomplishment. "Ethan, I think we finally got it," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "The evidence is solid, and Olivia is confident that we can win. Victoria's lawyer has been trying to negotiate a settlement, but Olivia thinks we should take it to court. She thinks we can expose Victoria's manipulations and deceit and set the record straight once and for all." I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and trepidation. I had known that this day would come, that I would have to face Victoria in court and confront the pain and betrayal of the past. But I also knew that I was ready, that I had the strength and the resilience to see this through to the end. "All right, Lucas," I said, my voice steady and determined. "Let's do this. Let's take her down, once and for all." As I hung up the phone and looked out at the mountains, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I was ready for the fight, ready to face the challenges and uncertainties that lay ahead. But I was also at peace, grounded in the knowledge of who I was and what I stood for. I had rebuilt my life, piece by piece, and I was stronger and more resilient than ever before. In the days leading up to the court date, I spent my time preparing, both mentally and emotionally. I meditated, I journaled, I hiked, and I coded, seeking solace and strength in the activities that brought me joy and fulfillment. I also spent time with the local community, drawing inspiration and support from their stories and their experiences. The night before the court date, I sat by the fire, the flames casting a warm glow over the cabin. I thought about the journey that had led me to this moment, the pain and the betrayal, the growth and the transformation. I thought about the person I had been and the person I had become, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the challenges and the struggles, for the lessons and the growth, for the opportunity to rebuild and to redefine myself. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I knew that no matter what happened in court, no matter what challenges and uncertainties lay ahead, I was ready. I was strong, I was resilient, and I was at peace, and that was enough. The next morning, I woke up with the sun, the mountains bathed in a soft golden light. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm and determination wash over me. I was ready for the fight, ready to face Victoria in court and to expose her manipulations and deceit. But I was also at peace, grounded in the knowledge of who I was and what I stood for. As I made my way down the mountain, the city skyline coming into view, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a new journey, a new life. And I was ready to embrace it, with open arms and an open heart. The courtroom was a stark contrast to the tranquility of the mountains. The air was thick with tension, the hum of whispered conversations filling the room. I sat at the table beside Olivia, my heart pounding in my chest. Across the aisle, Victoria was perched on the edge of her seat, her eyes locked on me, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. She thought she had won, that she had outmaneuvered me, that she could control the narrative and bend the truth to her will. But she was wrong. As the judge entered the courtroom, the murmurs faded to silence. The trial began, and Olivia presented our case with precision and clarity. She laid out the evidence, piece by piece, exposing Victoria's manipulations, her deceit, and her true nature. Victoria's lawyer tried to counter, to spin the narrative in her favor, but the truth was undeniable. The emails, the messages, the financial records, they all told a story of betrayal and greed. I watched as Victoria's smirk faded, replaced by a look of shock and disbelief. She had underestimated me, underestimated the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. She had thought she could control me, manipulate me, take everything I had built. But she was wrong. I had fought back, and I had won. The judge delivered her verdict, her voice steady and firm. Victoria was found guilty of fraud and manipulation, her actions exposed for the world to see. She was ordered to pay restitution, her assets seized, and her reputation in tatters. As the gavel fell, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It was over. The battle was won, and justice had prevailed. But as I looked at Victoria, her eyes filled with tears, her body shaking with sobs, I felt a pang of sadness. Not for her, but for the love we had once shared, for the dreams we had once held, for the life we had once built together. It was all gone now, reduced to ashes in the wake of her ambition and my neglect. I turned to Olivia, a smile of gratitude on my face. "Thank you," I said, my voice filled with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." She smiled back, her eyes warm and kind. "You did this, Ethan," she said. "You fought for what was right, for what was true. And you won. You should be proud." As we left the courtroom, the weight of the past lifted from my shoulders. I felt lighter, freer, ready to embrace the future and all its possibilities. I knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be challenges and uncertainties, pain and heartache. But I also knew that I had the strength and the resilience to overcome them, to build a life that was truly my own. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my work, determined to make a positive impact on the world. I launched a new tech project, a mental health app designed to help people connect with themselves and with others. The app was a resounding success, praised for its innovation and its potential to change lives. I found fulfillment in the knowledge that I was making a difference, that I was using my skills and my passion to help others. I also continued to mentor young entrepreneurs, sharing my knowledge and experience with those who were just starting out on their own journeys. I found joy in watching them grow and succeed, in seeing the spark of ambition and determination in their eyes. It was a reminder of the power of community, of the importance of supporting and uplifting one another. One evening, as I sat in my office, reflecting on the journey that had led me to this moment, I received a call from Lucas. He had been by my side throughout the entire ordeal, a steadfast friend and ally. I could hear the pride in his voice as he spoke. "Ethan, I just wanted to call and tell you how proud I am of you," he said. "You've been through hell and back, and you've come out stronger and more determined than ever. You're an inspiration, man, a true inspiration." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "Thank you, Lucas," I said. "I couldn't have done it without you. You've been a rock, a steady hand in the storm. I owe you more than I can ever repay." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear the gears turning in Lucas's head. "You know, Ethan, I've been thinking," he said, "about the future, about the company, about the impact we can make on the world. And I think it's time we took things to the next level. I think it's time we expanded, grew, reached for the stars." I nodded, a sense of excitement and anticipation coursing through my veins. "I agree, Lucas," I said. "I think it's time we dreamed big, aimed high, and changed the world. Together we can do anything. We can achieve the impossible." With a renewed sense of purpose and determination, Lucas and I set to work, planning and strategizing, dreaming and scheming. We knew that the road ahead would be challenging, that there would be obstacles and setbacks, trials and tribulations. But we also knew that together, we could overcome them, that we could achieve greatness and make a lasting impact on the world. As the months turned into years, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had led me to this moment. The pain and the betrayal, the growth and the transformation, the love and the loss. I had been through the fire, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, more resilient than ever before. I had built a life that was truly my own, a life that was authentic and purposeful and fulfilling. One evening, as I sat on the porch of the cabin, watching the sun set over the mountains, I felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. I had come full circle, from the ashes of betrayal to the heights of redemption. I had fought for what was right, for what was true, and I had won. I had built a life that was authentic and purposeful, a life that was truly my own. As I looked out at the mountains, bathed in the soft golden light of the setting sun, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a new journey, a new life. And I was ready to embrace it, with open arms and an open heart. I stood up, taking a deep breath of the crisp mountain air, and made my way down the steps. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges and opportunities, trials and triumphs. But I was ready. I was strong, I was resilient, and I was at peace, and that was enough. As I walked towards the car, the city skyline in the distance, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, no matter what challenges and uncertainties I faced, I would overcome them. I would build a life that was authentic and purposeful, a life that was truly my own. And I would do it with grace, with determination, and with love. For I had learned that love, true love, was not about possession or control, but about freedom, about growth, about authenticity. And I was ready to embrace it, with open arms and an open heart,